Hello and welcome back to the Royal Oak Mile United Nations mock presidential debates. My name is Claire McNorton and once again I will be serving as your moderator. Today the candidates will be discussing economic issues. Representing President Barack Obama will be Bridget Vial and representing Governor Romney will be Emma Holcomb. Once again, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question and 30 seconds to reply. Candidates, when time has expired, you will hear. Without any further ado, I will begin with the first question. With gas prices on the rise, how would you work to ensure lower gas prices for United States citizens in the future? President Barack Obama, you will begin.
I believe that the most important way to reduce gas prices is to look at a long-term solution. And the first and foremost way to do this is to reduce our dependency on non-renewable sources. In my first term in office, I doubled wind, solar, and geothermal production of energy. And this leads to lower demand for non-renewable sources and therefore lower prices. Secondly, another way to reduce demand for gas would be to improve fuel efficiency for cars and trucks. In 2011, we raised the corporate average fuel efficiency standards to 35.5 miles per gallon by 2016 and 54.5 miles per gallon by 2025. This will reduce the need for further fossil fuels and will therefore lower gas prices.
Thank you. Governor, you will also have 1 minute.
The most important thing we can do to reduce gas prices for Americans is increase domestic energy production. We need to explore avenues of oil production in the United States so that we can reduce our dependency on foreign oil and lower gas prices for American citizens here in the United States. While it's important to explore other avenues of energy production, one of the most important things we can focus on now is oil production within the United States so that we can reduce prices as soon as possible for as many Americans as possible.
Thank you, Governor. Each candidate will now have 30 seconds to respond. President Obama, you may begin.
While I support Governor Romney's proposition that we produce more oil within our own country, it's simply not feasible. The United States consumes 20% of the world's oil every day, and unfortunately we only have 2% of the world's oil reserves. Furthermore, this makes a very big environmental risk in America. The proposed pipeline going from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico is extremely dangerous and could really hurt economies in our nation by increase.
Your time has expired. Governor, you will also have 30 seconds to respond.
While the United States does consume a majority of the world's oil, there are ways that we can increase oil production within our own nation through tapping reserves that have never before been used, and also by building the aforementioned pipeline. Although that pipeline, some might say it's dangerous, through regulations on the way the pipeline is built, we can ensure that it is safe and that we increase the oil production in the United States in the most effective way possible.
Thank you, candidates, for your remarks. I will now begin with the second question. As president, what would you do to promote job growth? President Obama, you have 1 minute.
There are essentially two ways that we can help create jobs in America. The first way is to directly create jobs in industries and support industries that are supporting or achieving other American policy goals, such as alternative energy and infrastructure. Once again, under my administration, we doubled much of the renewable energy sources, and this provided thousands of jobs. Secondly, we have infrastructure. Infrastructure is vital to our nation, and improving our nation's road systems as well as public transportation will not only support jobs but achieve other policy goals. Secondly, we must create the conditions that foster job growth. I believe that the best way to do this is not by continuing tax loopholes for corporations, which are very successful and can already afford the taxes they have, but cutting taxes for small businesses. This will encourage job growth and support businesses.
Thank you, President. Governor Romney, you will also have 1 minute.
There are several ways that we can increase job growth in the United States effectively. One of the most important things we can do is cut taxes and regulations that are killing small jobs and small businesses. Another really important thing that we can do is increase trade, primarily U.S. exports. We can reestablish the Trade Promotion Authority and complete negotiations for the Trans-Pacific Partnership to secure allies and commerce across the Pacific Rim. Through this alone, we can create 5.4 million new American jobs and support already existing American jobs, primarily in manufacturing, bringing that industry back to the United States. We also need to promote opportunities in education in the United States that focus on training for jobs that already exist so that we can fill holes in the U.S. economy and allow Americans to work and those industries to flourish.
Thank you for your remarks. President, you may now begin with your 30-second reply.
The deregulation that Governor Romney speaks of has been put into place before. We've seen it under President Bush and under other previous Republican administrations. It has not been successful. It has produced negative effects on our economy as well as environmental risks. I believe that we can create a positive environment for job growth, as was under Bill Clinton, by when we created 23 million new jobs and went from deficit to surplus.
Thank you, Governor Romney. You may now begin your 30-second reply.
In fact, there are many regulations, especially placed on small businesses, that are hurting their growth. Through cutting these regulations, we can help small businesses increase the amount of employees they can support, creating more jobs for Americans. Small businesses do employ so many Americans that it's very important that we cut their taxes and cut regulations on them that are not necessary and that are keeping them from hiring more American workers.
Thank you, candidates. I will now read the final question. How would you handle the current World Trade Organization disputes with China if elected? President, you may begin when you are ready.
I plan to continue defending American industry against the unfair Chinese trade practices that have been going on for many years. This includes being aggressive in combating these practices that are not only unfair to American industry but are also illegal under World Trade Organization practices. Just in June, we had a successful appeal to the World Trade Organization that caused China to suspend its subsidies of the steel industry, which allows it to sell steel outside of its country cheaper than it sells it in its country. In July, we had another ruling that ruled in our favor, combating Chinese monopoly of of bank cards, which was hurting U.S. bank card suppliers. And just last month, we had another case that we took up with the World Trade Organization, working with the Chinese dumping of American auto parts.
Governor, you will now also have 1 minute to answer.
We need to continue to take the strong approach that we have in combating China's unfair and illegal practices. However, what we've done in the past is not enough. We need to continue to take the lead in combating these practices by forming allies in the Pacific Rim that will allow us to put more pressure on China, both within and outside of the World Trade Organization, to end their illegal practices and to stop hurting the American and world economy. Intellectual property theft in China has cost 2.1 million American jobs. That's something that we need to stop, not just through the efforts that under the Obama administration have already been taken, but through further efforts, primarily a strong presence in the Pacific Rim around China.
Candidates, you will now have 30 seconds to reply. President Obama, you may begin.
While I agree with Governor Romney that it's important to have positive relations with countries around the world, I don't see where having a stronger military presence or building allies in the Pacific Ocean will prevent Chinese unfair trade practices. I believe that continuing to combat the trade practices that they have put into place to support American industry is the best way to support American jobs and to end unfair trade practices.
Governor Romney, you will also have 30 seconds to reply.
Well, combating unfair Chinese trade practices through the World Trade Organization is an important road that we need to take. We also need to continue to maintain our presence and build our presence in the Pacific Rim to show China that their practices are unfair and illegal, and that if they continue to do so, they cannot continue without retaliation through trade from the United States, from the World Trade Organization, and from our allies.
Thank you very much, candidates, for your remarks. That will conclude the debates. I thank you all very much for tuning in.